Will now be recorded.
I'd like to call the caucus meeting of June 1st, 2021 to order at 7:45 p.m. Present are council members Schuman, Limpert, Heeman, Glassburn, and Kelly. Our clerk of council, the mayor, the law director, our chief of police, and our guests this evening. Are there any additions or corrections to the caucus meeting minutes of May 18th, 2021? Seeing none. Council, just for your information, I know that Clerk Massarola let you all know earlier as well, but during the miscellaneous business portion of our meeting this evening, we will be making the announcement that council will return to our meetings in person in council chambers on August 3rd. So if you can please make note of that. Also joining us this evening is the Human Resources Director, the Finance Director, and the Planning and Development Director. On tonight's agenda, we have 4 pieces of legislation to be considered for suspension of the rules. The first 2 are on second reading. Ordinance 2021-35, our transfer ordinance. Director Kopfer.
This was discussed in committee and the committee approved for suspension. Like we normally do with our budget transfers, we want to get them in place so that people can continue to do what they need to do and not hold our operations up. And we discussed them in committee and it was approved as amended with suspension.
Thank you. Councilman Heeman.
Councilman Heeman, you're muted.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me now?
Councilman.
I have no objection to suspension for that.
Thank you.
Or are you asking about it?
I was, that's okay. Are there any objections to suspension? Seeing none. The next to be considered is ordinance 2021-36, establishing a new local fiscal recovery fund, which was also heard in finance. And Councilman Schuman.
Yeah, this went through finance without a question, so I don't think suspension is a problem. And we did recommend with suspension.
Thank you. Any objections to suspension? Okay, seeing none. Moving on to first reading. The first to be considered is resolution 2021-43, a resolution extending the temporary signs in non-residential districts in the city of North Olmsted. And Director Gallo.
Thank you, Madam President. This is extending our COVID sign policy through the end of September.
Thank you. Council members, I know that on behalf of Councilwoman Williamson, who is not able to be with us at our meeting this evening, she had asked for the possibility of extending this ordinance instead of through the end of September to just extend it through the end of the year, so December 31st. Would council be open to that? Councilman Kelly, Councilman Glassburn, I'm seeing yes. Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, I think that is actually an excellent idea. I know that when Councilman Glassburn and I went to visit businesses, they were unaware of the sign code, so we did distribute it to them, and they were very excited by that. So I think it would be well received by our business community.
Thank you. Councilman Lippert.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. I'm certainly not opposed to that. I would hope that we as a council look at how we can work with administration to communicate the changes for next year once that becomes reinstituted again, as now it's been probably over a year that's been in place. So it would be good to refamiliarize people with what the code actually is. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Councilman Lippert. Okay, thank you, Council. Any objections to suspension for 43? Seeing none, the final piece of legislation to be considered is Resolution 2021-44, authorizing the Chief of Police on behalf of the city to apply to the U.S. Department of Justice Office of Community Orienting Police Services for a grant. And I see our chief is here to talk about that today. Chief?
Thank you, Madam President. You know, I was hired back in 1998 off of a COPS grant similar to this. There were 3 of us hired at that time, and each grant comes along with its own specific set of rules that govern the amount of money. But what this grant does, is it pays for 75% of the 3 years of the salary, 75% towards a new officer, and that includes benefits, if I'm not mistaken, and 25% is left for the city to bear. Considering the fact that we're going to be doing some hiring anyway, I received this email from the Caucus County Chiefs in the mid-May, and I sent it out to the directors, and we met on this a week or so ago, a little over a week ago. And we'd like to try and apply. The reason we asked for suspension is that the application is due, the first part of the application is due June 15th, with the second part being June 22nd. So we're under a bit of a time constraint, but my thought process on this is if we're going to be hiring anyway and we can get 75% covered, it's for the first 3 years, and the city would have to cover 25% of that, like I said before. But then we do have to retain that officer for 12 months after the grant funding is concluded. But that shouldn't be a problem with the amount of retires and people expected to leave in the next few years.
Thank you, Chief. Council members, any questions for the chief regarding the grant? Councilman Schuman.
What happens if we end up letting a new officer go if he doesn't make the cut?
That's a great question. I don't know. I can't answer that, but I would assume that funding would be put towards another officer that we would hire in its place.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? Thank you, Chief. Any objection to suspension? Okay, seeing none. Moving into scheduling committee meetings. First, on first reading, Resolution 2021-40 will go into Finance, and Resolution 2021-41 will go into Recreation, Public Parks, and Buildings. And Ordinance 2021-42 will also go into Recreation, Public Parks, and Buildings. And Councilman Schuman.
So I guess we can have a meeting next week, 7 o'clock. And I can't imagine this would take too long. Carrie, you got any idea?
10 minutes, maybe?
Yeah, 10 minutes. 7 to 7:10.
Thank you. Councilman Kelly.
Thank you, Madam President. Schedule the Recreation, Public Parks and Buildings Committee for 7:10 PM for 2021, 41 and 42, and ask that the Recreation Commissioner be there.
Thank you. About how long do you think you'll take, Councilman?
I'm not sure. If we give it maybe 20 minutes for both of them, that should be plenty, I would think.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Councilman Limpert, would you, I know that there are liquor permits that will need to be heard. Did you want to go ahead and schedule a Public Safety, Health, and Welfare Committee meeting? Or did you want to wait until the chair, you can speak to the chair? Do you just want to go ahead and schedule that?
I'll schedule it, but Council President, you think we can do that the night of the next council meeting for the permits? I don't know what Mr. Broussard's schedule is, but I would
We
assume
sure-
he'd be at the
Sure, no
Okay.
problem. All right, thank you.
7:30.
Okay,
Madam
sounds,
Chair,
yes, Councilman Schuman.
if that's the only meetings we have, perhaps we could handle them all on the night of the regular council meeting.
It looks as though those three committees are it.
So
So-
if we start at 7 o'clock on the, is that the 15th?
Yes.
The only thing is, Mr. Kelly, I won't be there. I'll be traveling on the 15th. Would you be able to take care of this? That means you'd have to do finance and then your own committee.
That's fine, as long as the other person's going to be there too.
Hope so.
All right. Well, council members, we can schedule it for, I'll just move those times over to the 15th. And if there needs to be a change, we'll work with the clerk and make sure that the public is notified.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam President, do we
Yes.
have, I just wanted to let you know, and I know I put it on the legislative request, but the tax budget, the alternate tax budget has to be passed by like middle of July. So if you have questions on it, or I was hoping to be able to pass it on suspension on the 15th. Additionally, or you can have a special meeting at the end of June. I don't know if you are already planning one or not. So there's, just know if there's questions, I'll have to answer them really quickly, but it's pro forma, so I think that it should be fine that night.
Okay. Thank you for the notification. Okay. All right. Council, is there anything else at this point? Seeing none, I would like, on behalf of council members who've had some questions, to ask if the mayor and the law director during their reports at the meeting tonight could give council an update on the dog bite situation that we heard about last week. That would be appreciated. And seeing no other items for our caucus, we will end at 7:58 p.m. and we will be back at 8 o'clock for our regular meeting. Thank you.